Hello and welcome to WyTime 2.0. This is Alan Nuss and I'm going to be walking you through the WyTime 2.0 system. This is a brand new Chronos timekeeper. This is a Java-free system, so it should work on any computer, anywhere. Right now, you should have your employee training manual out because I will be referring to that all throughout this training. So on page 3, it shows you your login screen, which is what you see now. You're going to go ahead and put in your username and password and go ahead and log in. When the system opens, you'll see your time card in the middle. It's always your current pay period. You're going to see what accrual balances you have. And then over here on the right, these are the buttons that will take you and allow you to do the functions that we're going to talk about all throughout this training. So the very first function it talks about is on page 3. It says go ahead and select punch in. You'll notice 2 punch buttons. This is the image on page 4. Punch in for the day, punch in from lunch. These are actually going to put punches in. So if you use this to punch out, you're going to actually just punch in over and over and over again and generate missing punches. Of course, you don't want to do that. So on page 5, it talks about signing out. So we're going to go ahead and you'd select punch in, you'd select sign out, and you'd notice that it brings you right back to the login screen. So on page 6, it talks about punching out. We're going to go ahead and log back into the system. We're going to see on the right-hand side, once it opens up, that the punch out and activities button is over here. So we're going to select this when we want to punch out. And you'll notice right here, there's 2 forms. One is change job or location, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. And the other one is clock out, WDH3 in the instruction manual. It says to select WDH3 on page 7. So we'll go ahead and select WDH3. And what that's going to do, it's going to actually clock you out. So now, if you click this before the end of the day, it's going to put an out punch on your time card. And that'll need to be fixed by your supervisor if that's not exactly what you wanted. So next is page 8, and it talks about requesting time off. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close this extra tab here. It's going to bring me right back to my information. And we're going to go over here and we're going to go to my requests. That's what it tells me to do on page 8. It's going to open up another tab. You can see my information still here. Now we have the My Request tab. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to select Request Time Off tab. On page 9, it talks about multiple different types of time off requests you can do. You can have vacation requests, sick time, admin. Those are the primary ones. And then as you scroll down, you'll see additional ones. And we'll talk about a few of those here in the next few steps also. For this example, we're going to go ahead and select vacation time and say we want to request vacation time off for next week. So what we do is we go ahead and select the start date of the 6th and the end date of the 10th. What time is always hours. The start time we want every day is 8 a.m. and then the length, right? And you can actually see it populate 8 a.m. if that's not what you wanted. If you wanted 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. and you put a 1 in there, you're going to see it say 1 a.m. If you want 1 p.m., put in a 1 p, and you'll see 1 p.m. appear. For this example, we're going to leave it as 8. And the length, even though we're taking 40 hours off, we're going to put in 8 hours because it's 8 times the 5 days. So the length is the time that you want off per day. So you put in your length, go ahead and select Submit. And now if we go to next week, you can actually see that our vacation request has been put up there. It hasn't been approved yet. I'll show you what an approved time looks like. Here we'll go back to the previous pay period. You can also use the calendar tool to select what week you want to view. So we'll say the 20th through the 24th. Or to be 100% accurate, your week is The 18th to the 24th, if you want to view the actual week. If you need to view a specific day, just pick the specific day. So we'll go ahead and we'll view the Monday through Friday week. And that's in February. Our time was in January, so I'll use the toggle buttons to view the 23rd through the 27th. And now you can see there's a big green bar once your supervisor has selected approve and approved your vacation request. You can see once again on the 25th, that vacation request is still pending. It has a little arrow instead of a check mark. And on page 11, it talks about requesting comp leave versus overtime pay. So if you're a non-exempt employee, you're a 40-hour-a-week employee, if you work any overtime, this is how you're going to select comp time versus overtime pay. So once again, you'd start out here on the My Information page. You'd select My Request. Now you'll notice My Request is grayed out. So we'll go ahead and select the tab. We're back into My Request. This is the page that's shown on page 11. We're going to go right back up here to Request Time Off. We're going to select the type as monthly overtime comp time choice because you're making a choice. So normally we say on the very first of the month you want to put this on, so we'll put it on the first day of the month. We'll say the start time is 8 a.m. because it doesn't matter, and then length is important. So if you put in 1, you're requesting comp time. If you put in 0, you're requesting overtime pay. Now if you want paid, you don't have to do anything. That's the default setting. If you want it on your time card to show you want paid, you can follow these steps. If you want the comp time for the overtime, select 1 or anything greater than 0. Select Submit. We can go actually up and find this request. We'll go ahead and select the 1st of January. Select OK, and you can actually see right away it's a green bar. Now, the reason it's a green bar and we didn't do anything is because when you put in an overtime comp time choice, it doesn't need to be approved. It's instantly accepted. These are also features on the clock, and there will be a clock manual also. On page 13, requesting overtime authorization. So this is asking your supervisor for permission to work overtime. So if you would first log into the system, once again, you would see this screen just like it is on page 13. We're going to select My Request, which is grayed out, so the tab's already open. And then requesting time off. Again, and then we're going to scroll down to the WDH overtime approval request. And this is on page 14. And then you'd fill out what day you're requesting overtime for. So it doesn't make much sense to request it for January. So you'd go to February and you'd say, well, it's February 3rd, it's a Friday. What time does it need to start? Noon, and I need 4 hours because that's when my shift is, or whatever. So if you need to work overtime and you have to have it approved, this is the way to do it in the system. Now, I strongly recommend that you still talk to your supervisor, make sure that any overtime that you're working is approved. So on page 15, it talks about retracting or canceling leave. So what I'm going to go do is I'm going to go right back to the last week in January where we know we have requested some time off. This is the screen I showed you earlier. And I'm now on page 16. It talks about hovering over your request. You see the little blue circle with the triangle in it. You can select it. It says retract because this leave request hasn't been approved yet. This one here, if you hover over it and click, you'll see cancel. Once again, cancel is for approved leave requests, and retract is for vacation requests that have not been approved by the supervisor. once you go ahead and select cancel, you'll see a time off request pop up. You can select submit here, and your supervisor will receive an email requesting that they go out and approve your cancellation. Here, the vacation request has not been approved, so when you select it, it says retract. You get the same basic pop-up. It's going to say retract time off. You select submit. Now, your supervisor is going to get an email, but you don't have, or that supervisor for this employee doesn't have to do anything. You can see the little X with the underline came up. That means that this leave request has been retracted, and they can no longer approve it. On page 18, it talks about fixing missing punches. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and close the My Request tab. And we're going to see on the right, it says Fix Missed Punch. So we're going to select that, and the Fix Missed Punches screen is going to appear. Now, before I fix a missed punch, we need to really look and see, can I fix this missed punch? So down here on the 30th, I want you to notice that you punched in at 8, and then you punched in again at 5. You probably meant to punch out. So these punches here cannot be fixed. I mean, you can put additional punch in, but it's not going to fix the problem. Okay, so that one you're going to have to contact your supervisor for, because they're probably going to have to delete this in punch and make it an out punch. Maybe add a lunch if you missed that too. So on the 24th, though, we can see we punched in at 8, we punched out at noon for lunch, and then we didn't punch back in from lunch, and then we punched out at 4:30. So what we need to do here is we're actually going to think about it and say, okay, so I was back from lunch at 12:30, so we will click this, and you'll see the Fix Missing Punch button appears. Go ahead and select the Fix Missing Punch, and we're going to say we were back at 12:30. I'm going to select Submit, and then you'll notice up here at the top there's a yellow bar that says the time card is not totalized. So if we go down here, we'll say, well, we just put that punch in, but it's not there, and it says, but it said the punch is submitted. So what we need to do is select this little refresh button. We can scroll down, and now we can see that that 12:30 punch was actually put in there, and we're all good. Now we can go back over here to the My Information, because I said this is your time card. We'll go ahead, and up here you can select either that day, or you can select previous pay period. Whatever you need to do, the previous pay period appears. We'll go down here, and now you can see on the 24th we have an 8 a.m., a noon, a 12:30, and a 4:30 out. Now, down here you can still see those missing punches exist. Clicking on these boxes doesn't do you any good. You have to go to the Fix Missed Punch if you want to fix a missed punch. But like I said before, you punched in at 8, and then you punched in again at 5. You really wanted to punch out. So your supervisor still is going to have to help you if something like this happens. The next step is on page 20, is talking about entering an activity. And what activities is basically a time study. What this does is if you do something outside of your normal job, like you are asked to work on a different hall, or you were going to do a different job for the day, you'd go in here and you'd punch in for the day, and then you'd start a different activity. So on page 20, it says go over here and select Punch Out in Activities, and you'll see this screen appear. I told you we'd get to WDH2, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to select WDH2 for today. And now all we have to do, this is a start time activity. So anytime you start a new activity, you can do this. So we're going to pick the division. We'll pick on the aging division. Actually, we'll pick on the Pioneer Home. And then we'll select what jobs are at the Pioneer Home. So everybody's paid under the Pioneer Home. So if you had an employee coming from the Veterans Home and are going to work at the Pioneer Home for the day, this would be a perfect example of where we would share, and then the bill would go to the right place. So select Pioneer Home, and you select Save. And now all of your work for today until you say stop is going to go to the Pioneer Home. The way you say stop is you simply select the WDH3 and you clock out for the day. That brings us to the page 22, and it talks about reviewing your time card by week. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close that tab again, and I am going to show, this is my home page again. Once again, if we select refresh up here on the top, it would show us the current pay period of what we actually are doing, but we need to view previous pay period, or we want to view a week to make sure that we're meeting our 40 hours of time, something like that. So we'll go ahead and we'll use this calendar tool here, and we can select a start date, and we'll select back here in January. We'll use those toggles, make sure this is the previous month. We're going to say the full week, so we want to see the 21st through the 27th, and then we can select apply. That will make our time card change. Then we can go ahead and scroll over left and right, and you can see, and you can scroll up and down if needed. If something doesn't look right, always select refresh. And you can see that last week we worked 33 hours, so it looks like we either need to put in a leave request or have our supervisor approve the leave request. So once again, just scroll right and left. Make sure what the period total is what you want it to be. If you're hourly, perfectly fine. You don't need to work all 40 hours. If you're exception paid, non-exempt, you're required to work those 40 hours. So we'll have to put in some leave to get you all the way to 40 hours. On page 23, it talks about approving and removing approvals from a time card. So what we would normally do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to come into this this screen again that when we first log in, and you'll notice up here it says current pay period. Well, if you approve the current pay period right now, you'll notice we get an informational bar, and it turns everything yellow, and now the problem is the bottom is gray and we can no longer punch in or punch out. So we need to remove time card approval. Once again, you'll get an informational bar up here. Your time card will go white. To do it properly, you want to make sure you select the previous pay period, and you want to approve the previous approve the previous pay period instead of the current pay period, and you won't have any problems. Now, this time card, if we scroll down, still has those missing punches in it. So is it accurate? My answer is no. So why would you approve it? You should probably remove the approval. No problem, no big deal. Work with your supervisor, correct that time card, make sure everything's accurate, and then come back and approve this time card. The last thing we're going to talk about is printing your time card. It's pretty obvious. It's right here. There's print time card. There's no more hunting to find the print time card button, and you can print anytime you want. So if you only wanted to print the week with those missing punches so you could go talk to your supervisor about it, we can scroll down and we can say, well, that's on the Monday the 30th, so we want to make sure that we have in case the 30th here. So we're going to go back to January. We're going to look at the 30th here. We're going to say, well, from the 28th to today, we'll apply that. You can actually see those missing punches now. You're going to select the print time card button. You'll see the print controls open. Select print. It'll print out, and then you can take this to your supervisor, get things corrected. I'm not going to print it. I'm going to go ahead and close it. Brings you right back here into Kronos. So that is the brand new WyTime 2.0 system. If you have any problems, questions, or issues, please contact your HR division or your fiscal division for help with activities. And as always, have a good day here at the Wyoming Department of Health. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoy the brand new WyTime 2.0 system.